When you suddenly come into a lot of money, there are many things that can go wrong. Whether it's just a lucky investment or an inheritance from your grandparents, there are some common mistakes people make when they experience sudden wealth syndrome. In this video, we're going to talk about sudden wealth syndrome and why it's so important for you to do these things once you get rich all of a sudden. Being on the receiving end of a significant sum of money sounds great, doesn't it? But it can also come with a great deal of stress and worry. There is a recognized psychological affliction. It's called sudden wealth syndrome, and it can cause us to do some silly things with money, ultimately leaving us worse off than we were before the windfall, which is not good. I'm sure you've all heard the stories about lottery winners who subsequently declared bankruptcy. According to the National Endowment for Financial Education, 70% of lottery winners end up broke. That's sudden wealth syndrome at play. Scottish hospital porter John McGuinness won £10 million on the National Lottery back in 1997. He gave away £3 million to family members, £750,000 to his ex-wife. He bought cars, holidays, and even a £200,000 wedding to his second wife, and he invested £4 million in Livingston Football Club, which later went into administration, making him liable for its debts. By 2009, he was broke and became a virtual recluse. There are countless stories like this about lottery winners and professional athletes who come into big sums of money only to lose it all. In the US, 78% of NFL players have gone bankrupt within 2 years of leaving the sport. Sudden wealth syndrome is a psychological condition or an identity crisis in individuals who have suddenly become wealthy. The syndrome is characterized by isolation from former friends, guilt over their changing circumstances, and extreme fear of losing their money. So what can you do if you have to deal with this sudden wealth syndrome if you're on the receiving end of a cash windfall, expected or otherwise? The starting point is to have a sensible review of how much money you actually have. Now, 6 or 7 figure sums are a lot of money, especially when they arrive suddenly, when they're unexpected. But even a multi-million-pound sum might not be enough to last you an entire lifetime. It all depends on how you spend it, because wealth isn't what you get, it's what you keep. You also need to get your head around the terms and conditions associated with the money. Here in the UK, lottery wins and gambling wins in total are tax-free, but inheritance is taxed at 40% on sums over and above the nil rate band. Capital gains are taxed at 10% or 20%, or at 18% or 28% on property gains. Make sure you set money aside for paying the tax bill, as HM Revenue and Customs do not mess around when it comes to tax. Also, make sure you really have received a windfall. You don't have the money until you have the money. In other words, don't count your chickens until they've hatched, until that sum actually lands in your bank account, once the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed on any associated legal paperwork. Are you really about to receive a life-changing sum, or is the promise of a big payment part of some elaborate scam? Be especially wary if you're asked to pay some money to get some money. That's almost always a scam at play. Step 2 is to seek advice, preferably before the money arrives and a long time before the money arrives. Fairly on in my career as a financial planner, I was working with a new client who had sold his tech business for a multi-million-pound sum, and during my first meeting with him and his wife, the sale proceeds arrived in his bank account. He checked his online banking and the money had just arrived. They had carried out no forward planning before this huge amount of life-changing money arrived, and they had no plan about what to do with it. And at the same time, the business deal he'd done had become common knowledge in his industry, and he was getting bombarded with cold calls from investment managers, all other sorts of financial salespeople, all trying to get their mitts on his moolah. Look, we don't always know that we're going to be on the receiving end of a windfall. That's why it's called a windfall, I guess. But we should plan for it if we know it's coming down the track. Creating a financial plan with the help of a suitably qualified, regulated and experienced professional before that money arrives in your bank account. This will allow you to make more rational decisions in line with your goals in life. You should always start with what you want to achieve in life, what it is you want, with that money being the element that finances those goals. So instead of asking yourself, what can I buy with this money I've got now? Ask yourself how you can use the money to advance your life goals. Understanding that there's a difference between the skills you need to make money and those you need to keep it and grow it, that's key to all of this, especially if the source of that windfall was luck. Recognizing that it was luck and not down to skill, that can be hard. We all like to think that we got to where we are today by virtue of our hard work and our superior judgment. But if you pick the random number on a lottery ticket and that's how you won the money, you probably don't have the skill set required to make savvy investment decisions or run a football club. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. Recognize that your sudden wealth means that you need to acquire a brand new set of skills. Read widely and consult with trusted sources to obtain the knowledge and expertise that you need before you make big financial decisions. Even with the best advisors in place, you should still have enough knowledge about money and investing money to assess their recommendations before you take any action. I think this is why so many professional football players and other athletes, they get caught out because they rely on entirely and they trust their professional advisors. They don't actually make that judgment for themselves. Always have enough knowledge to assess what you're being told to do. Part of the financial planning process is the lifetime cash flow forecast. So we use sensible assumptions about investment returns, charges, price inflation, etc. And it allows us to graphically illustrate the likely path of your wealth over a period of time, typically all the way through to age 100. Armed with that forecast, we can then model the financial impact of different investment or spending decisions. What will it mean if you give away £1 million to your friends and family? Will it result in a higher or an intolerable chance of you running out of money before you run out of life? On that topic of giving away money to family and friends, you need to be seriously careful here. Sudden wealth has the nasty potential to attract new friends who aren't really friends, or encourage previously estranged family members to appear back on the scene. Separating genuine friendship or family relationships from opportunists can be almost impossible. And this isn't to say that you need to cut off ties with friends and family. Doing that would lead to some fairly miserable times in some cases, but you do need to establish some really clear boundaries. In fact, you might even want to come up with a cover story to explain the source of your sudden wealth. Avoid publicity at all costs, especially if you're a lottery winner or you've sold your business for a large amount of money. Never disclose the exact sum. Always refer to an undisclosed amount. This is one area of life where the privacy element is essential for maintaining your safety, for maintaining your state and mental health. If you have picked up any publicity around sudden wealth, take steps to protect yourself. You can change your phone number. You can create a new email address that only trusted contacts have. Even consider temporarily deactivating social media accounts. It's also a good time to take your cybersecurity really seriously, strengthening your passwords and your online banking security. Another really important step to consider is to delay making any big purchases. I can absolutely understand the temptation to visit the nearest Porsche dealership or go and see an estate agent who specializes in country estates. Don't do it. Stop, take a deep breath, and spend some time reflecting on what will actually make you happier. Rushing into significant financial decisions at a time of high emotions, that's unlikely to put you in a good long-term position. Rather than making big financial decisions that involve lasting commitments, instead consider dipping your toe in the water. Just trial different living situations or even vehicle choices. This is what renting is for. And you can celebrate the moment, but without blowing massive amounts of cash. Treating yourself to a holiday or buying some small but special gifts for your loved ones, these things are fine to do. But dropping a few £100,000 on a supercar or a few £1 million on a property without taking the time and having the patience to consider that purchase first, and also considering it within the context of your overall financial plan, your goals in life, that's usually a bad thing to do. If you've experienced sudden wealth syndrome, or you're just starting to experience it, or you're about to in the future, so your business is doing well, you're about to sell it, or you're about to get a big inheritance, then I hope the tips in this video were useful for you. Tell us in the comments, what are some steps that you would take to deal with sudden wealth syndrome? And what would your cover story be if you won the lottery? I'm really interested to hear that one too. Thank you for watching this video. Until next time, I'm Martin Bamford. And remember, when it comes to your money, the more you know, the faster it can grow.